I was seconds from ending everything. Literally seconds. The clock was ticking, and I had convinced myself that the world would be lighter without the weight of my existence in it. I was ready to let go. But then, a stranger, a total stranger on a crowded city bus, slipped a crumpled note into my hand. It had just 4 words written on it. 4 simple words that refused to let me die. Stay until the end, please. Because if you are hurting right now, if you are staring at your own wall, hit subscribe because this channel might just become your note. This is Tiny Grit, and this is the story of how I saved my own life thanks to a ghost in a gray coat. Let's go back. 3 years ago. My name didn't matter back then because, quite frankly, I had already erased it from my own story. I want you to picture the room I lived in. I woke up every morning in a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like old takeout and broken promises. You know that smell? It's the scent of stagnation. The air was heavy, recycled, and stale. The man in the mirror, he looked like a stranger wearing my face. Hollow eyes that hadn't seen a spark of joy in years. 3-day stubble that I was too tired to shave. A body that had completely forgotten what hope felt like. I was living a life that wasn't mine. I had a job I hated, working for people who didn't know I existed. I had bills I couldn't pay, stacking up on the counter like a monument to my incompetence. And my phone? It was a graveyard, a voicemail full of people I'd stopped calling back. Friends, family. I ghosted them all because I was ashamed. My mother's last message, sent 6 months earlier, still sat unplayed on my phone. I couldn't bear to hit play. I couldn't bear to hear her worry in her voice, or hear her ask the question I couldn't answer. Where have you gone? They called it the wall of salt. That's what I named the moment everything crystallized into one unbearable, hard truth. It wasn't a sudden crash, it was a slow calcification. I had become the failure I always swore I'd never be. First, the layoffs came. I was redundant, expendable. Then came the eviction notice, taped to my door like a scarlet letter. Then came the night that changed everything. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor. The tiles were cold against my legs. I had a bottle of pills in my hand. I poured them out. They sounded like rain hitting the tile. I counted them like loose change. 147 capsules. I thought, enough. That is more than enough to silence the noise. That was rock bottom. And here's the thing about rock bottom that movies don't tell you. It's not dramatic. There was no screaming at the sky. There was no tears streaming down my face. There was no sad violin music playing in the background. It was just silence. A terrifying, heavy silence that whispered to me, it's okay to quit now. You're tired. Just sleep. And God help me, I believed it. I truly believed that quitting was the only logical move left on the board. But I didn't do it that night. I don't know why. Maybe cowardice, maybe exhaustion. The next morning, I boarded the 7:15 downtown bus. Not because I had a job to go to, but because I didn't have anywhere else to go and I couldn't stand the silence of that apartment anymore. I sat in the back, hood up, staring at the grimy floor. The city blurred past the window like a film reel someone forgot to stop. Gray buildings, gray sky, gray people. People got on, people got off. Nobody looked at anybody. We were all just ghosts haunting the same transit line. That's when I felt it. A tiny brush against my sleeve. Not a shove, just a presence. An older man in a worn gray coat stood up to leave. He looked tired, etched with the same city grit that was drowning me. As the pneumatic doors hissed open, he didn't look back. He just placed something on the seat beside me and walked away without a word. I stared at it.
a folded piece of paper. I didn't move for 3 full stops. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Finally, my curiosity won. I reached out, my hand trembling, and picked it up. I unfolded the paper. 4 words stared back at me in shaky blue ink. One day at a time. That was it. No scripture, no phone number, just one day at a time. And that was the first tiny grit spark.
When we left off, I was holding a note from a stranger that simply read, "One day at a time." It felt ridiculously small, almost insulting in its simplicity. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to be angry. One day at a time? You don't know my life, old man. You don't know about the eviction, the pills, the failure. But something inside me cracked open. Just a hairline fracture. Just wide enough for a little bit of air to get in. I didn't throw the note away. I couldn't tell you why. I slipped it into my wallet, right next to a maxed out credit card and a photo of better days that I couldn't look at anymore. Then I got off the bus and I walked. I didn't walk toward anything specific. I just walked away from the edge. The days that followed were ugly, let's be real. There was no montage where I suddenly started jogging and smiling at the sun. I still woke up wanting to disappear. The darkness was still there. But every morning, I took that note out of my wallet. I read it once and I made a decision. Only for today, I wouldn't finish what I started on that bathroom floor. I promised myself I could quit tomorrow, but not today. One day at a time became the smallest promise I could still keep. I started with 4 a.m. choices that nobody saw. These are the choices that define you when the world is asleep. Deleting dating apps at 2 a.m. when the loneliness screamed the loudest. Drinking a glass of cold water instead of reaching for the whiskey when the memories hit. Walking an extra bus stop just to feel that my legs still worked. Just to feel the burn in my lungs. I applied for jobs I was sure would reject me, and they did. I collected 37 rejection emails, but I started treating them like badges of invisible progress. 37 times I tried. I forced myself to cook 1 real meal a day, even when eating felt pointless. 1 egg, 1 piece of toast, 1 day. People talk about momentum like it's thunder. Loud, crashing, undeniable. But mine was more like frost. Slow, quiet, creeping across a window pane inch by inch until one morning you wake up and realize the whole glass is covered in a beautiful pattern. 6 months in, I landed a part-time gig at a warehouse. It wasn't glamorous, 12-hour shifts, sore backs, minimum wage, but I showed up every single day. Because the note said I only had to do today. Then came the turning point. This is the part that still gives me chills. Exactly 412 days after the stranger saved me without knowing it, I stood in the break room at the warehouse staring at a corkboard full of safety notices and shift swaps. Someone had pinned up a faded index card. I leaned in closer. It was the same shaky handwriting, the exact same blue ink, same 4 words, 1 day at a time. My knees almost gave out. I grabbed a coworker. Who put this here? Nobody knew. It had just appeared one morning, same as it had appeared for me on that bus. That was the goosebump moment. That was the proof that the universe sometimes answers in handwriting you can hold. That was the proof that we are all connected in this struggle. Today, I'm recording this standing in my own apartment, paid for with money I earned. My mother's photo hangs on the wall again. We talk every Sunday now. I coach kids on weekends who feel exactly like I did, lost, angry, forgotten. And in my wallet, still right next to that maxed out card I finally paid off, lives the original note. It's worn soft as cloth now, but the ink is still blue.
Here are the truths I carry now. The truths I need you to hear right now through your headphones or your speakers. Number 1, the smallest action kept is louder than the biggest intention abandoned. Don't plan to change your life, just change the next 5 minutes. Number 2, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just the next step in the dark. Stop looking at the summit. Look at your feet. Take the step. Number 3, some heroes never learn your name, and that's exactly how they save the world. Be that hero for someone else. And finally, rock bottom has a basement, but it also has a door. You just have to turn the handle. So I'll ask you the question that still wakes me up some nights. If tomorrow felt impossible right now, would you be willing to borrow one more day? Just one. That's all any of us ever get. If this story reached the part of you that's tired, do 2 things for me. Hit subscribe, not for me, but for the version of you that's still fighting to believe tomorrow can be different. And share this video with one person who might need their own bus note stranger tonight. Because 1 second at a time, that's all it ever takes. Stay gritty.